Join me, Harriet Gould, for the Lab Matters podcast to hear fascinating stories every week from the inspiring people behind the science. In this episode of Lab Matters, Josh Smalley of Great British Bake Off fame tells me his favourite season for gardening and baking and what he's been doing since leaving the famous tent. Today we have Dr. Josh Smalley. You might have heard of Josh. He's pretty famous now, I think it's fair to say. Josh, you're described on your website as a multi-talented professional with a doctorate in chemistry, who also happens to be an outstanding baker, gardener, and chemical biologist, which is plenty to be going on with. And I don't know if it's a technical term, but I think you probably got a healthy helping of stardust to go along with all that. Now, I want to know what the first thing was that made you make the connection between science and cake. But before we go there, I wondered if we could go back a bit further, right back perhaps to your school days and how you got on there.
Pleasure to be on here, and I'm really happy to talk about anything really. I can start back at school, but can get all the way through to Bake Off. Um, yeah, I loved it at school. I went through the school system in my local village, so I went all the way through. I'm Leicester born and bred. I've never yet left, so I'm still at the university. This is my 10th year here now, so very got a soft spot for Leicester. But I loved it at school, and I've always been one to try my hand at everything and trying to do the best that I can at everything that I do. So yes, I was academic. I love to do all the sciences and maths as well. But equally, I'm very creative, very arty. So I did fine art to GCSE, and I think that sort of flair with that creativity also helped whilst I was in the Bake Off. And I'm also very sporty as well. So I've played rugby for the last 16 years. So I've always been one all the way throughout school. I've never stuck by that. Some people associate school as you're either in one or two or three camps. You're either the academic one. You're very sciencey. You're very sporty inclined, or you're very creative. But I very much love to do a bit of everything all the way through. And and I find so many aspects of each of them just help the other ones thrive as well. So I've loved it all the way through. I went on from I studied maths, physics, chemistry at A level. I went then started at the University of Leicester in 2014. I did an MChem in pharmaceutical chemistry with a year in industry. Absolutely loved that. I had a third year that was spent in industry, and that industry was placement was at Signature Discovery in Nottingham. That was the best year of until Bake Off here. That was the best year I think I'd had, because it was just being exposed to working in an industry environment. I learned so much, and I came back to the lab in my fourth year, really equipped them with all the skills to really progress. Gave me the bug to want to continue in research in chemistry.
What were
Did a
some of the
PhD.
things, sorry to interrupt, what were some of the things that you came across at Signature?
It was the multidisciplinary environment that I really loved. So I worked in the medicinal chemistry discipline there. I got to try my hand at two or three fantastic projects for the whole year. I spent the entire year in the lab doing organic chemistry, wet lab chemistry, and I just learned so many incredible skills. But I love to see how all the different disciplines work together. So although I was medicinal chemistry, there was the DMPK group, that was the biological chemistry area. There was computational chemistry, and they all came together on individual projects to work as one, and they all added their own little bits. And I just loved that multidisciplinary environment. And so when it came to wanting to go further and go in to do a PhD, I looked around and see which ones what I wanted to do, and I was very keen to get started straight away. So I wasn't I considered some of these like doctoral training centers and that sort of thing, being able to go around and do rotations at different experiencing different bits. But I knew what I wanted to do, so I went straight in to do a PhD, and I stayed at Leicester because the PhD that I got here was a sort of continuation of my MChem project, but I was able to do this multidisciplinary PhD. So it was a brand new project, so I went from concept. I designed molecules, I synthesized molecules, I took them over the road, I do the assays in vitro assays. I do assays on cells. I'd analyze all the results and I write it all up. So I got to be exposed to every single aspect from concept through to publication, and I think that's why I opted for it. Absolutely loved it, and
Mm.
yeah, that's why I'm still here now.
So you can hear the enthusiasm coming through. It was so interesting. I had no idea that you did fine art as well. And I wondered if you ever flirted with the idea of art restoration.
So I've always done a bit of art on the side. I like to keep myself busy, as you can probably tell. So I'm researching at university, but I also play my rugby. I also do a bit of art. I also do a lot of baking. I look after my garden. That feeds into everything because the garden's very much about. I love to grow fresh, homegrown produce. Use that in the baking. The baking then makes its way into the chemistry office. It makes it into my rugby team, and so every single thing that I do, it all sort of joins up together, and they all sort of help each other out. So I love to do all of those things. Yeah, but no, they are. I've always loved to do a bit of painting on the side, and I think again it's that, and that's the aspect when I was on the Bake Off tent was the bit that I probably thrived in doing I excelled at the best when it came to the decoration of bakes, especially for the showstopper bakes in those the final bake of each week, because you got that you were given the license to just go wild and you try and be really creative with ideas and decorate your bakes. I just absolutely loved it. It was just played right into my zone.
I saw a post on Instagram that you put, must have been around about Easter time, where you were making a biscuit. It looked like the ultimate. I think it was actually on the back of the Royal Society of Chemistry book, Steeped,
Yep.
being published, and it was the ultimate dunking biscuit was. And I could see how very precisely you were piercing holes into the chocolate on one into the biscuits on one side, and then very precisely weaving the chocolate. You can tell how intricate your attention to detail is. But then you're probably quite good at tempering the chocolate. Is that right? You have a real technical understanding of what's necessary. I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
go
Well,
into
yeah, love doing the tempering chocolate, and actually, in what I'm doing now, which is sort of like I've sort of divided my role between as doing the research, but I'm also very much part of public engagement, science communication now, and part of that is sort of bringing together the worlds of science and baking together, and trying to get the younger generation inspired and excited and motivated by wanting to consider science and chemistry, and I think by linking it to a subject area like baking, it's a really good way to motivate that interest. So I love to. Definitely bringing those two together. And part of those, I love to talk about all of the where chemistry plays such a key role in all the different or cooking processes that we do. So chocolate tempering is a big example of that. Um, with the different crystal forms that your cocoa butter takes within your chocolate, and it's all about the tempering process, accurate temperatures. You've got to get them to these specific ones in order to get your chocolate tempering to work, and you get that beautiful, shiny, snap, melt in your mouth chocolate that you want. So yeah, I absolutely love to. I love to know all about the science that underpins all of these things, because that's the reason why you have to follow a method and why they look as good as they do. It's all about the science behind it.
Mm. And we can us we laymen can appreciate that to a certain extent when we're baking a cake, but when we're buying chocolate off the shelf, perhaps not so much. Um, whose idea was it for you to do Bake Off?
Um, I've always been encouraged to do it. I mean, ever since I've been at the university here, I remember all the fellow PhDs when I was doing that said, "Josh, you got to apply, you got to apply, you got to apply." I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Well, I applied once before. It was actually just the cusp between finishing my master's project and starting my PhD. I think it was the first year of PhD I applied, and I got through a couple of rounds, but no further than that. I don't know if I really my heart was really in it for applying. I don't know, but since then, I have definitely evolved as a baker, and I've always loved to bake well before that. But the breadth of baking that I cover and the precision and the presentation of bakes is just as excelled so much between when I first applied to when I did the second time round. So I'm pleased I didn't get any further in the first time round. But yeah, so then I applied this time round. It was a combination of things. It was again, people would say, "Josh, you've got to give it a go." It just felt like it was a if I was going to give it one more shot, this was the only time I was going to be able to do it. Um, so um, yeah, that's why I went for it.
Do you think that matters? I mean, you involved as a baker, but I mean, I always get the impression that the Bake Off is for home bakers rather than professional chefs.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of the show, isn't it? That it's bringing together amateur bakers, and you can just just see how everybody works, how everybody's got their own strengths and where all their ideas come from and their inspiration. I think it's absolutely fascinating. But
Mm.
yeah, it was a fantastic group of bakers, and yeah, I wanted to give it one more go. My nan was a big encouragement for me as well. I said I'd apply for her one more time. She just after COVID, she fell ill and she died of lung cancer in 2020, and I said that I was going to give it one more go. So I wasn't quite ready that year. I waited one more year. I thought I will give it one more shot. I'll try it for Nanny. It's sort of like it felt right. I was just finishing my PhD. I thought there's no better moment than right now to give it another go. And yeah, here I am now.
Here you are now. So back to what I mentioned at the beginning. What uh, I mean, uh, I guess in a way that you might have got a bit of it from your time at Signature, but what do you think was that first thing that made you make the specific connection between cake making and science?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I come from quite a scientific family. My uncle has got a PhD in chemistry, as has my cousin. Both of my parents worked for the NHS for 35 years. So I've always been quite a scientific um, family. So that's always been there. And I've, there's so many scientists that bake and are very, very good bakers. I can tell all the way around the building here. I could name 15 or 20 just straight away of incredible bakers that I know, just in these two buildings where I am. So I just think it's one of the things where I think because there's so many parallels between the two, I think that's why they just I think scientists are very good bakers because it's just it's following a method or a recipe. It's mixing things in a pot. You stir them all around, you heat them up, you get a product at the end. Sometimes it goes wrong in both in the lab or in the kitchen, and then you go back to the drawing board and you try different things, try different flavors, different ingredients, different equivalents of stuff, and just play around. And I think it's that aspect of it that I think, yeah, I just love both of them. So no sooner is my apron is my lab coat off at the end of the day out of the lab, I get home and then the apron straight on, and then we're in the kitchen. So it's from one type of experimenting to another.
Hmm. And your activities on the TV have had quite an influence in the university. I understand you've got a sort of kitchen lab set up there now. Do you
Yep.
want?
So that was it's amazing how it's all come about actually because it was just a little it was a dream project of mine that I went to the vice chancellor here at the university and my and the head of chemistry, who's also my supervisor here, I went to them and said, I've always loved science communication. And I just thought there's an opportunity where I could try and do something a bit different. I wanted to try and stamp my mark and do something that I don't think anybody else is doing. And I said, is the opportunity that I'll be able to do something like this? Because I had somewhere in mind where I wanted it to be. And they just said, yep, you can have it. Let's do it. And it's just snowballed. And now I've got an incredible space. And actually, just last week, we've had the rest of the decoration done. And it is a wonderful place. So it's all vinyls and branding up now. And it's got new lights in there. It's a fantastic space, all kitted out, ready to work in, and going to do all multitude of projects in there. So it's going to be incredible. So whether it's live events that I'll do, where it's external visitors or schools or whatever can come in and I'll do demos or we'll do little presentations there, or it could be webinars that people can tune into and watch, and they can be tailored accordingly to whether we're doing it more at a GCSE level, school level, or whether we're doing it at a higher education level or the wider public. There's been so much external interest in wanting to do projects as well, so I've got a big line of projects coming up, and then also just to do things actually at the university to get just for the benefit of the staff and the students that are here. There's some fantastic things that we can do whereby it brings together that real world thing, baking, cooking, but it's showcasing science and chemistry in the real world, and you can understand and you get to learn about the science and the chemistry that underpins all of it, and just a really good networking opportunity. So it's I'm so proud of how it's all come together, and I just can't wait to see what we can do with it.
Mm. It sounds brilliant. What's it called?
So we've just it's very broadly just termed the University of Leicester Science Kitchen,
Mhm.
and it's deliberately science, not just chemistry, because where it's situated at the campus at the University of Leicester is right in the heart of the College of Science and Engineering. So its surrounding it is the chemistry building, physics, geology, natural sciences, and everything. So they're all just around it, and it's right in the heart of it. So it could not be better placed. And it is, and it's very much about, yeah, and it's all the sciences, because there's ways of blending in and showcasing all the different sciences um, through chemistry and baking. So whether it's down to when you're talking about the working of enzymes that you've got when you're making bread, or when you're doing fermentation, or like denaturing proteins when you're making your meringue mixture, or whether we go down to like physical chemistry, we talk about the processes like distillation when you're making alcohol, through to all sorts of things. There's so many, and you can build engineering into it as well. There's so many ways you can weave it all in. So it's going to be a fantastic yeah, it's a fantastic venture going forwards.
It sounds it. I'll look forward to seeing how that develops. Congratulations on that. And it's a real feather in your cap, I'd say. Lab Matters is brought to you by the award-winning temperature control equipment from Polyscience, available worldwide. Polyscience, changing the world of temperature control forever. Um, so tell me a bit more about your gardening.
My gardening, yes. Again, that's just something I've always done it. I've just absolutely loved it. And again, I sort of bring the chemistry into that as well, because I'll be testing the pH of the soil, so that I've got the
Ah,
correct growing conditions for certain plants. And then actually one of the things that I always find amazing. So people say we don't want to add chemicals to your plants. That's why everyone's always very conscious about this. But the in your fertilizers, if you're going to be adding nitrates, phosphates, etc., in these fertilizers, if you just put manure on your garden, they have still got exactly the same nitrates, phosphates, everything in there, but it's just in a different form. So everyone adds to chemicals everywhere. You're always adding chemicals to your garden, but it's just not necessarily like it's come out of a bottle. But I think that there's chemistry everywhere in that as well. But yeah, gardening, I've loved to do it. We're live in the old family house, so it was passed down to me by my grandparents. My grandpa laid the actual garden out, and it is just it's my pride and joy in the summer months. I play rugby from September through till end of April, and that's when the garden just comes into its own. I'll have been growing plants and sowing seeds and things sort of like March, April time, a bit earlier than that for your peppers and chilies and things like that, and tomatoes and aubergines. And then once we hit to May, that's when it just sort of takes off, and then that becomes my big thing that I do for the rest of the summer is the growing for the fruit and vegetables, and then using them in the baking. And then as the garden winds down towards the end of sort of like September, or well, August, September, that's when then the rugby starts again, or at least the garden at that stage is under control. It's just things are just ripening or just sat there, so you can just it's less maintenance. But yeah, I just absolutely love it.
mm. Do you have a favorite season in the garden and in the kitchen?
Um, Oh, in the garden. I have probably a favourite sort of like month, which is probably going to be in around about 3 or 4 weeks' time. Sort of like mid June to mid July is wonderful, because things are just kicking on. You can literally be watching them grow like minute by minute almost. Well, especially when I have the giant vegetables that I grow. But you can watch things grow day by day, and they're just really everything just looks really pretty. Once you get sort of like August time, it becomes a bit of a jungle. So it's not so. Although it is a fantastic time, that's when the harvesting is really beginning. But it's a bit harder to maintain. But yeah, when you have that sort of like July sort of period when everything's just looking fantastic, I absolutely love that. And that's probably the same sort of thing when it comes to using it for the baking as well. Is that sort of June, July times when all the fruits are ready. So all the currants, all the raspberries, all the plums, that sort of thing. I love using all of those sorts of fruits in the bakes, the blueberries as well. So I love to grow lots of wacky fruits as well. So all manner of things that are growing, and whether it's like golden raspberries or white blackberries, all different types of things. And then yeah, but then also I equally as much just love sort of like the September October time. That's when all of your squashes and pumpkins and things are beginning to be ready. So yeah, I just love all of it.
I think that's my favorite time. Although I'm not exactly a baker or a gardener. I grew 6 carrots once in my garden, but I don't, it's more of a survival of the fittest situation in my garden, I'm afraid. Um, so you planning big plans for Halloween or Christmas this year?
Yeah, I mean, I love to do. If you've seen on the Bake Off, you'll have seen I love to work to a theme. So when it comes to things like the festivities, Halloween and Christmas, yep, I absolutely love it. We've got really big plans to do things at the Science Kitchen as well. So bringing in the science of the Halloween sort of like season and bakes would be a really nice way to go about it. And want to get in sort of like other bakers as well. We're going to get some of those to come into the kitchen space and we'll do some things together and we'll go through some of the science as well, which will be fantastic. But yeah, no, I love Halloween and Christmas. I love both of those periods. Again, pumpkins are ready, fresh off the garden, or when it's picking your Brussels sprouts, which I always do on Christmas morning.
You pick the Brussels sprouts on Christmas morning.
On Christmas morning, I'll go down
Wonderful.
there in my wellies and
Wow.
yeah, I've got a big billock, a like a big like blade. So you go down
Okay.
there. It's really therapeutic. You go down there, chop them down at the base, and then I'll bring up the stalks with them all on, and then just pick them all. And we have them fresh. So
Fabulous.
it's yeah, it's one of the things I just love to do.
With chestnuts?
Yep.
Excellent. Um, Now I told one of my friends, Kate, that I was going to be talking to you this afternoon, and I asked her if she had any questions and that she'd like me to ask on her behalf. And she said, how did you get on with the presenting team behind the scenes on the Bake Off? And did Noel paint you?
um, they were all wonderful. It was the whole production team in general because although you only see the bakers and then the two presenters and the two judges, there is a whole crew involved. The tent's full of people because you've got the camera people, you've got people on sound, you've got the story producers, you've got runners that are doing all your washing up for you and coming to give you a spatula when you've run out. So you've got people everywhere. So you've got to just get on with everybody and know everybody really well. But yeah, presenters were lovely. Noel was just absolutely wonderful. What you see is what you get. He is exactly like you expect. He is on when you see him on screen. He's like the off screen as well. So he was fantastic. Yeah, had some fantastic laughs with him.
Good. And what are your future plans for combining chemistry and baking apart from the science lab? Have you got any more TV planned? Maybe a book or your own restaurant, maybe?
Yeah, well, I would love to try and do something, work towards something on TV. That's my ultimate goal. Yeah, I would. Like I said, I've always loved to do science communication, and I feel like I've got an opportunity now to use the platform from Bake Off to really try and make a difference. And I would love to try and do that if I can. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what we can do with it. If there's an opportunity to do that, I'd love to. I really would love to pursue more down the science communication, public engagement route, and talk to the younger generation, give talks. I'm at the Cheltenham Science Festival next weekend doing a talk. So all it's called culinary reactions. So it's going to all be about how we transform a set of ingredients into a bake, the chemical processes that are going on when we put together a bake, and then you get to eat it at the end. So you get to learn a bit of science and then you get to eat at the end. So I don't think there's any better way of learning, really, is there?
No, I agree. I think everyone might have been a little bit more motivated if they were taught in that way.
Yeah,
Speak for
exactly.
myself.
And when I've given my when I've been around and given talks and given demos, that's exactly the feedback that I get from people, and that's what I want to hear, which is great. People are they love what they see. It's just something different, and it's yeah. They just said I think that what I want people to take away from it, so that whenever they think of that bake or whenever they think of caramel, they will think of those key sort of like chemical processes or bits of science in there that goes into making them. So hopefully they'll always connect those things together.
Hopefully. So before we finish, there's always one question I like to ask everyone. The question is, what is the one thing that you would like to change about the future of science?
Oh, well, I think for me, it's I'm as a chemist, organic chemist myself. I'm going to go down. I'm going to focus on chemistry here. I want to change that perception that people think that I think it's when they were taught it at school, they think chemistry is too hard, got too much to remember, um, and it's yeah, and things like that. I want people to be able to get really excited by it and see. I think when you can see a real world application of chemistry, you can see how it affects your everyday life, and it is around everywhere in everything that you do. I think people will, that'll change their idea on it, and I think they'll want to learn more about it, hopefully get involved, hopefully pursue science as a possible degree subject or career going forward. And if some people can consider that, then that's fantastic.
Wonderful. Well, let's hope you get your wish and that one thing changes. Josh Smalley, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
And it's been wonderful coming on. Thank you very much.